Thank you for joining us today for Cape Chronicle. I'm Mike Renick. We have three special guests in the studio. Today, we will be talking with Mark Croarkin, MODOT Southeast District Engineer. Next, we'll meet Ward 3 Councilmember Nathan Thomas. And lastly, we will talk to Grant Dade, KFVS 12's Chief Meteorologist. That's all ahead on Cape Chronicle.
Every day,
millions of people
are connecting.
Father,
cosplayer,
Mentor,
actor. It's time we take a step forward, come together,
and discover
how accepting our differences can make us stronger.
Welcome back to Cape Chronicle. I'm Mike Renick. Mark Croarkin is a MODOT district engineer for the state's Southeast District. The district serves 25 counties and is the largest MODOT district geographically. Croarkin has been with them for 22 years in the field of transportation. Mark, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
22 years, huh?
Yeah, it goes by quick.
Yeah. So that in that intro, talked about that geographic area. So that's the biggest in the state.
It is. It's quite the challenge. I can actually drive 5 hours and still be in the area that's in the Southeast District.
So as you said, that can present some challenges then?
Absolutely. I try to get out as much as I can, but I live pretty close to Cape, so this is kind of the metropolitan area of the district, and that helps being right here.
We were talking before we started about different initiatives that MODOT currently has going on. We're going to try to get to a handful of those. I know there's a lot in the works right now, but specifically there's a project, Route 25, Route K there at Gordonville, and I know that you're looking at some different ways to make that area safer for travelers.
Absolutely. There's been a lot of interest at that 25 and K intersection, and we've studied it and determined that a roundabout would really be the best solution to move forward with there. I had told a lot of people that I really thought we'd be building it this summer, but we had a public meeting in December, early December, had a great turnout, over 40 people, which that's a lot for a public meeting, and they gave us some ideas that helped us, and we're going to make it a little bit better, but we had to buy some more property, so it'll be this fall before it gets put out for bid. So I really don't expect to see that work until next summer now, which would be 24.
Okay, so a project like that, how does that come about? Is that you get calls, obviously you monitor safety records in those areas, but what kind of goes into saying, okay, yeah, we've got to take care of something here?
We have a lot of different avenues that projects start. Asset management is normally the biggest way, just taking care of roads and bridges, and when we do that, we try to look to improve the area. This one, we had the interchange at Center Junction going on, and we put some temporary signals here, and when we did that, we took a hard look at how could we improve this and saw that there were a few accidents and looked for ways to improve that. We actually made some temporary improvements. We saw the bulk of the problems were people leaving Cape kind of headed south on 25. They would assume that people were going to turn and they would pull out in front of them and get hit. So we were able to offset that northbound direction pretty easily, but a roundabout will be a much better solution that will allow traffic to continuously flow and be safer. There's really very minimal chance of a wreck in a roundabout.
I know we've seen some roundabouts pop up in Cape, which I think kind of scare people at first, but it seems to be something that we're seeing more of.
They work really well, especially if you have directional traffic. In that area, it's absolutely directional. People, heavy motion one way in the morning to school and a heavy motion one way away from school at the end of the day.
You mentioned the Center Junction project. Were you spending a lot of time at Center Junction?
Well, I moved back to the area a couple years ago, so I got here for the end of that. Center Junction, it really worked out. A lot of the concerns with shutting down traffic or the impacts came when COVID did. So we were able to get that work done when there really wasn't a lot of traffic on the road. And I appreciate everybody working with us as we got that completed.
Some other projects that I know have recently been completed, there was some work on Route 177 in Cape.
Yeah, 177 is unique. We don't do a lot of flood mitigation, but that's a pretty important route, and it was flooding in 2 different places. So we built a bridge where there was a culvert, and we did have a little bit of trouble with the bridge. You know, southeast Missouri, there's rock in areas, and it's not always, you know, you can drill and you can look, and then it's not there when you build the bridge. So the bridge took quite a bit longer than we expected, but then we had a drought with no rain, and there's another section a little bit closer to town. If you knew where Midwest Block and Brick was,
yep.
You know, raised the road quite a bit right there. It should be a good 5 feet above the highest flood we've ever had. So that road shouldn't have to worry about closing again.
So traffic should be good, in theory, for several years to come there.
Absolutely. We'd had a run of some pretty major floods, and I know that was impactful to the businesses unplanned, and I appreciate them cooperating with us as we were able to finish that work up.
And again, a project like that, something you guys identify as, you know, we have a need, we're hearing from people, and let's see what we can get done.
That actually even went through a statewide kind of process, trying to look for some flood remediation, what was the highest need, and that kind of came to the surface as, you know, really this is a major highway that should be flood resistant.
We have a couple minutes left. I know there's initiatives that MODOT is a part of. One of those very important, the Buckle Up, Phone Down initiative.
Oh, absolutely. Buckle Up, Phone Down is pretty well what it says. Is you need to buckle your seatbelt when you get in the car, and you need to put your phone down. On Missouri roads, average 3 people die a day, and 2 of them are unbuckled. So it's so important, and distracted driving is really taken over. So we've had a couple partners. AAA has actually helped us expand a program to where we have a Buckle Up, Phone Down challenge. Earlier in the year, we had it with high schools and high school students where they could win money for their prom or their project graduation. And right now there's one going on with businesses. So if a business has 5 or more people, they could compete to win money from AAA from the Buckle Up, Phone Down Business Challenge. And it's as easy as signing a pledge. The more people in your company you get to sign the pledge that they will put their phone down and that they will wear their seatbelt when they drive, the better chance you have of winning. And some of the prizes, I mean, like first place is $7,500. So the second is $6,000, and then $5,000 is third place. And there's a lot of like $25 participant awards that if your name gets drawn for participating and joining that effort. I've watched that Buckle Up, Phone Down campaign start in Missouri, and it's growing to a lot of the states across the nation.
We were talking also before, you want to hear from the public. If there are questions people have, there are issues, what's the best way to reach out to MODOT?
You know, it's that time of year. We have a lot of trash talk, picking up trash.
Right.
And we have the Buckle Up, Phone Down Challenge, and we have projects. Anything you want to know, you can look at our website at www.modot.org, but if you can't find it, you can always call 1-888-ASK-MODOT, and we have people that answer the phone that really want to help you. They're super nice. They want to help customers. That's why they're there. If you've got anything you need from MODOT at all, feel free to give them a call.
All right, Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We've been talking with MODOT Southeast District Engineer Mark Croarkin. Next, we'll meet with Ward 3 Councilmember Nathan Thomas. Stay tuned. More Cape Chronicle coming up after this.
People think that online degrees are very daunting and they're very nervous because it's in your hands, but it actually gives you the power and the flexibility to be able to complete those tasks whenever you have the time to do it. I definitely wish SEMO keeps expanding those online degrees because they're beneficial. They made or break my career.
Welcome back to Cape Chronicle. I'm Mike Renick. Nathan Thomas is the Ward 3 representative for the city of Cape Girardeau. He has been serving since August 2019 when he was appointed and was officially elected in June 2020. He's also a member of multiple community organizations. Nathan, good to see you.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
How you doing today?
I'm doing great, thanks.
So what, just right off the bat, what was the reason why you decided to get into public service the way that you have?
I've always been one. The service really drives me, and it's a passion for me. And back in 2019, I live in Ward 3. There was a vacancy created because the current ward member, or the current council member for Ward 3, had to move outside of the ward. So I have a background in government and policy, and that's what I had living out in Washington, D.C. at the federal level, been involved in different state houses, so I knew how to understand policy, read it, and I knew that I could hit the ground running. And so I thought, you know what, this opportunity came about. I talked to my wife, talked to my family, and said, may as well jump in because I know there's a limited window left of that term.
Sure.
That I could hit the ground running, and there were some important things being moved through, and use that skill set that I had developed over years before for the benefit of the city that I live in, that my family, we're raising our family in, and that we love. So.
And then in 2020, you decided to run and were elected into that same spot.
Exactly. Decided to run for a full term after that. It was one of the most unique elections, I would say, of all time, because it was right when the pandemic and the shutdown hit, and we had a primary the day after Groundhog Day in February in the snow, and then so I had yard signs out in January all the way until the postponed election that went from April into June because of the shutdown. So I had to fight hard and long. You know, I always joke that the people who agreed so graciously to put a yard sign in their yard back in January didn't expect to have to weed eat around them in June.
Exactly.
So,
I know we want to talk some just about how the different layers of city government work. So let's just kind of get into that. On the council level, the city charter. How does all that work for the city of Cape?
Well, the city charter, we are a charter city. In Missouri, there's classifications of cities as a political subdivision of the state of Missouri, which is obviously governed by its state constitution.
Sure.
There are third class and fourth class cities, but there's also charter cities. So we, as a community or a municipality of Cape Girardeau, have long ago, years ago, had developed our own constitution, if you will, in our charter, which governs us, and so we uphold that. And so there's certain advantages and disadvantages to being a class city or being an independently chartered city, and we, though, as a council and as the city government and the officials, our number one job is to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. So to provide the services that the city and the citizens feel are necessary, and that those taxpayer dollars should be used for. And that then you not only pay taxes at the local level, but it goes to the state level and it goes to the federal level. And I think that's one way, using my past experience, that I've tried hard to do, is to look for ways to maximize the impact of those state dollars, or not state, those tax dollars, so that we don't have any redundant services or redundancies of spending money that could have been handled, whether it's from the federal level or the state level. So.
And Cape has a city manager. How does that work with the council? So
the council has the authority. We are obviously elected by our wards, and then the mayor is elected by the citywide.
Sure.
But we only hire 2 people on the city staff. So there are hundreds of city staff, but the only one we hire is the city manager, and he's effectively like the CEO, if you will, that then hires the rest of the department heads and the rest of the city staff and oversees them in the operations. We act as more of a board of directors, helping to advise, helping to direct, and moving forward. But you may ask, who's the second person that we hire?
Yes, that was my next question.
Yeah, that's the municipal judge. And so just like there's separation of different powers at the federal level with the Supreme Court judiciary branch, and then the executive branch with the president, and then the legislative branch. We effectively have that with the municipal court is separate from the day-to-day operations of the city government. So we hire the municipal judge.
So I know you represent Ward 3, but obviously you have the entire city in mind in your role on the city council. How do you kind of balance that, those that you represent, but with the whole city in mind?
I tell anybody that's a newly elected council member, you're elected by your ward, but you're right. You hit the nail right on the head. You're there to represent the city as a whole. And so my wife and I are business owners in town. We have our kids in the school system, and so we meet a variety of people. And my role is to be a gateway between them and what they may need or what they may have an idea for at the local municipal city level. And so I'm there to represent not only them, but businesses downtown, children or parents in the school system, whatever it may be. So you're not there just to represent your ward. You're there for the vibrancy of the whole city. And much like we can't just look within the microscope of our city. If you look nationwide, statewide, municipalities that thrive are the ones that the county, the city, neighboring cities, and the state really collectively work together to make sure that the area thrives. And that's really where we need to go as a city, is make sure that we're all on the same page to move ourselves forward. So as the city of Cape Girardeau thrives, so does Ward 3. So that's really my long answer to your question.
Well, and we have about a minute left. That was my question, and you kind of hit on this. Then how does that relationship with the county, with the state, how does that work together, all speaking the same language, going after the same goals? Yeah,
exactly. You have to work very cohesively with them, because it's a matter of that's how the cities, the areas that thrive, and some of them that are really close to us, so we want to make sure that we continue to set Cape Girardeau up top. And that's not just Cape Girardeau, the city, that's the county, and that's not just the county of Cape Girardeau, that's all of southeast Missouri, because then the citizens thrive, and we want to make sure that we continue to be a place that people want to move to, that they want to live, they want to raise their family, they want to invest their dollars in, and create businesses in and stay here. And so we love Cape Girardeau, and it's an exciting time for Cape Girardeau, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds.
Real quick, some spirited debate at times in those council meetings?
It can be, everybody brings their own lens to issues, Sure. It's not like what you may see at the federal level that you see on CNN or Fox News, but we all hash it out. We work very well together. Like I said, it's an exciting time. New city manager, new mayors, a couple new council members, new finance director, but and new opportunities there as well, with just citywide, countywide, statewide, new state representative for our area. So it's exciting times. So.
All right. Well, Nathan, that'll do it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
We will end our show today with KFVS Chief Meteorologist Grant Dade. That's coming up next on Cape Chronicle.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are in the right seats for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
My mother was always very familiar with her neighborhood, but one day she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual, and she didn't know whether she should go forward or turn, and she wasn't even really sure where she was at. It was very unsettling for her.
I felt so much better after my son told me, "Mom, I don't want you to worry or be afraid. I'll be there for you, and we'll figure it out."
Welcome back to Cape Chronicle. I'm Mike Renick. Grant Dade is only the third chief meteorologist in the 60-year history of KFVS TV. Before KFVS, he worked for KLTV in Texas, where he won Best Weathercast from the Texas Associated Press of Broadcasters in 2010 and 2012. Grant Dade has been with KFVS 12 since 2014. Been that long already, Grant?
It has been that long. Matter of fact, this is the longest place I've ever lived anywhere in my life.
Is it really?
Cape Girardeau.
Is it? But you're from Texas originally?
No, I'm not from Texas. My dad was in the Air Force, so I moved all around as a kid.
Okay.
It's kind of what got me interested in weather. A lot of different climate zones I lived in growing up as a young kid and experienced different types of weather that kind of piqued my curiosity.
Sure. Well, that was going to be one of my questions is what did it for you? What made you want to get into this field?
Well, I used to be, I can tell you, I lived in Rapid City, South Dakota, and I use this kind of example of something that kind of just sparked my interest. Softball-sized hailstorm hit our house, and I remember watching the little hailstones destroy windshields and cars, and the side mirrors getting busted off, and it just sounded like hundreds of people were just jumping on our roof.
Yeah.
It's just extremely loud. I'm like, what is causing that? And my dad was home for lunch, and he said a lot of choice words that I won't say here. He was very upset, needless to say, because he saw everything being destroyed.
Right.
I'm like, what is causing this? And I was like 5 years old at the time.
Okay.
And I can remember Rapid City got just an incredible amount of variations of weather, kind of like we do here, but even more so.
Okay.
We had a blizzard one year that shut the base down for nearly 2 weeks, and I can remember looking at the house across the street that was a 2-story house, and the snow went up to the roof, and the snowdrift went up, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. That kind of just piqued my curiosity from a young age, so I started to learn as much as I could from a young age.
So I have a daughter who is very afraid of the weather whenever it gets bad. You embraced it. It interested you.
Well, that's an interesting question. That's an interesting thought, because when I was young, I was terrified of storms.
Okay.
But I was still wanting to learn about them.
Right.
I can remember the flip switching when I was about 10 years old. When I was 9, terrified of thunderstorms. Now, I liked them, and if my parents were around, it was cool. I was interested, but I would not want to be alone during a thunderstorm.
Sure.
10 years old, it changed.
Okay.
And I couldn't think of anywhere else I'd rather be but in a thunderstorm. And in high school, I would take, my mom used to get furious at me for this. I would go get our ladder, and I would climb up on the roof. Now, I don't recommend anybody doing this, as thunderstorms were rolling in. So I'd get a better view, because we had a lot of trees around the house, and I wanted to see the storm. So I'd get up on the roof, and I'd watch the storm in the distance and light. And when it got close, of course, I got off the roof. But yeah, that's
had to get that view coming in. So we're going to be short on time here. So so on a daily basis, how do you go about letting us know what to expect?
Well, I look at a lot of different types of forecasts that are generated from computer models. Okay. And we kind of get all that information together, and you have to base it on which model's performing the best, where's our weather coming from, what's it doing right now, and we kind of it's almost like a puzzle. We're putting all these pieces together, and then we come up with an answer, basically, of what to expect over the next 24 hours, 72 hours. Once we get out about 72, or you get to 3, 4, 5, 6 days, there's a lot of variation in there, but we're usually within the next 72 hours pretty good at, especially compared to where we used to be like 10 years ago.
So technology is
leaps and bounds.
Okay.
Better.
Okay. Weather is just, I mean, it's always what people are talking about.
Right.
And it's such a public service what you do. You know, I know it's a passion, but people, as I said, my daughter is scared of it. But it impacts our lives on a daily basis.
Right, it does, and we do surveys and find out that people are still, that's the one thing I really like about my job, is the fact that people can rely on us, and they want that information. So as long as people want it, and there's a demand for folks like us, then will be here. Once that goes away, I can't speak for what's going to happen 20 years down the road, but still right now, especially during severe weather events.
Absolutely.
You can't just look at an app and know what's happening. Somebody like myself or Laura Wibbenmeyer or Brian Allworth, we can look at the storm, dissect it, and let you know who's going to get hit by what while it's happening. And that's something that you just can't get from just looking at a phone.
And you mentioned the app. KFVS has a weather app.
Right, and so we stream on that. So when there's severe weather, when we have the warnings, you can watch it live on the app. You can also be alerted if you're in the warning area. So you get a lot of people that are like, let's say it's in Cape Girardeau and the sirens go off, but the tornado is mainly up in the Jackson area, and they weren't alerted on the app. Well, you're not officially in that warning polygon, so you're not going to get alerted. It uses the GIS to go along with the warning, so we're not just sending out all these warnings to everybody that does not need them.
So in your position, I know you're never off work. I mean, you're always in tune with what's happening. But if you have time to sit back and relax, what do you like to do?
My favorite thing to do is fly fish. I like.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Southeast Missouri has a lot of great rivers that I did not know about when I moved here.
Sure.
I thought this was a flat. I thought the Delta was all the way up towards St. Louis. I had no idea we had the St. Francis Mountains, the Ozarks this close, and all these spring-fed streams that are out there, crystal clear water, full of smallmouth bass. For somebody that likes to fly fish, it's great.
So you've found your oasis from that standpoint.
We get the kayaks out there, we get the fly rods, and then we go have a good time.
Now, is it weekend trips? Do you take the day?
Every once in a while. Most of the time, it's a day trip because most of where we go is within a day's drive, within an hour or two's drive. So it's not really that bad. I frequent the Castor River Valley.
Sure,
quite often.
yeah.
And you'll hear me mentioning all these areas when heavy rain comes by because there's not a lot of flood gauges on Castor, and there's a lot of campgrounds. So in the summer, if there's a lot of water draining in the Castor, I'm trying to say, hey, listen up. Maybe it'd be time to move the campers to higher ground.
So you know where those spots are.
Absolutely.
And you know that it's time to move on. Well, thank you for what you do. As I said, it's I know it's a profession, but it's obviously a great service keeping us safe.
Well,
so
thanks.
Thank you so much, and thanks for being here today. That will do it for today. Thank you for joining us for Cape Chronicle. This program is a collaboration between the Department of Mass Media at Southeast Missouri State University, the City of Cape Girardeau, and River Radio. Our executive producer is Eun Jeong Lee, and I'm Mike Renick. Thank you for watching today, Cape Chronicle.